This piece of Lisa is being brought to you by Mutual Security Credit Union. Find out more at mscu.com. The reason I think Rupert Murdoch is going down and going down hard, and it's only starting to penetrate us here, is because of a case of an abduction. Here are the facts that I've been able to read. A 13-year-old was abducted in England a couple of years ago. More than a couple of, I think 2006. It was a while ago. And when she was abducted, the parents didn't know what happened to her. So they kept frantically calling her cell phone and leaving messages. When they would leave messages, they would see that the messages were erased, so they thought she was still alive. It turns out those messages weren't erased by the killer, because she was ultimately found killed at 13 years old. They were erased by the News of the World newspaper that was hacking into an abducted girl's cell phone in order to continue to provoke anguished messages left by the parents. Can you imagine such an evil? Interfering with an investigation of an abducted teenager who ultimately turned up dead? This newspaper hacked into her phone mail in order to continue to steal the messages left by the parents who were believing that she was still alive because they were calling in and finding out that the messages were no longer X amount of messages still left. It's a horror. If that happened here, we would be calling for his head. Am I right? Would you not be calling for somebody's head who interfered in an investigation? It interfered with the police investigation. It interfered with what the parent thought happened. Now, these people were nobodies. These people were nobodies. So when they complained and they found out, and they did years ago, nobody did a thing. And that's the point. That's the point. What is it, 3,700 names now of different people that were and were not in the news? The investigation has now spread. They believe that this hacking also extended to our victims in the United States of 9/11. That's the latest I heard today. You just wait. This is the tip of the iceberg. And what it is showing is the extent to which the government and the regular citizenry of England have been absolutely intimidated to such a fearful degree by Murdoch. And not just Murdoch, they say it's the other tabloids as well. Only Murdoch is such a monopolist that he owns The Sun and The Guardian and the News of the World. There aren't that many others. There are a few. Wait. It's only going to first come out now. And is it right to make someone at the top the scapegoat for behavior of the editors? 100% yes. This kind of behavior does not happen without the top not only knowing about it, but encouraging it. There's no question in my mind. Have you ever been in an organization, you personally ever been in an organization where bad things have happened that the people at the top didn't know about? I can tell you lots of people at the bottom who don't know about things at the top. I can tell you lots of people in the middle in a different division who have no clue. But it is always the case. Look at Richard Nixon. It is always the case when bad things are going on that people at the top 100% know. They look the other way or they say, yes, let's do more. But they always know. And even if they don't know, obviously they're accountable at law. But I believe they did know, they do know, and this is only the tip. And what's coming out now is everyone begins to pile on Murdoch because, of course, he makes a great scapegoat, and many of them hate him personally and have reason to and have other motivations and this and that. Can you imagine a child being abducted in this country and the New York Times or the New York Post or the Daily News or I don't care what, the Inquirer, interfering with phone messages and erasing messages during the course of a police investigation into a missing child? Could you imagine that? Forget about Casey Anthony. They would really be calling for his head. Am I right? 100%. So when I'm hearing now and reading these details, and they're all in, actually they're in page 814 where they bury everything, right? But John Burns is the correspondent, and he's one of the best in the world. He's usually writing on the front page. John F. Burns, he's one of the best. And he wrote this detailed article. It is a do not miss. We're going to tweet it. Brian and Jamie, I want you to tweet this. It is called Victim's Family Appears Amid Rage at Tabloids. In the meantime, this family is now being feted at 10 Downing Street, posing in front of Ted Downing Downing Street with David Cameron and all the cameras, and they're being touted as the family that was wronged and a symbol of what's going on with Murdoch. But this is unbelievable. And here's the other wrinkle. So David Cameron, who was elected as the next coming of the conservative movement after they threw out Gordon Brown, let me just give you some more details. Gordon Brown is the former Prime Minister of Great Britain, and he has a son with cystic fibrosis. And those cystic fibrosis medical records were also hacked by News of the World. For what godly reason, I wouldn't know. And he gave a speech. Do we have a clip from that? I know Jamie was going to try and send it. Do we have Gordon Brown? I understand. It's 2 minutes. I understand that this is his speech of a lifetime. What the hell? Let's hear it. This is Gordon Brown speaking in front of Parliament yesterday. They say it's the greatest speech he ever gave.
But, Mr. Speaker, when there have been great occasions and great questions of moral concern, it has been this House that has spoken for Britain. Yeah. And over the next few months, this House must show it can rise to the challenge. For with the exception of decisions on peace and war, there is no matter of greater importance than the basic liberties of our citizens. Yeah. And each generation has to reconcile for its times the freedom of the individual with the freedom of the press, and to balance two great rights: the right of the public to information and the right of the individual to privacy. And at all times, I've defended the right of the press to expose any wrongdoing wherever it is found, and to speak truth to power, however uncomfortable it is, and indeed at times was for me. And although I will today make proposals for reform, it is my judgment that we should reform but never undermine something so fundamental to our ordered liberty, our twin commitments to both the freedom of the individual and to a free press. And I rise in this debate, Mr. Speaker, not to speak about myself, but to speak for those who cannot defend themselves. For the grieving families of our brave war dead, for courageous survivors of 7/7, for many others dignified but now outraged victims of crime, and most recently, and perhaps worst of all, the victims of the violation of the rights of a missing and murdered child. Many, many wholly innocent men, women and children who at their darkest hour, at the most vulnerable moment in their lives, with no one and nowhere to turn, found their properly private lives, their private losses, their private sorrows treated as the public property of News International, their private innermost feelings and their private tears bought and sold by News International for commercial gain. And you know, amassed against these guiltless victims and against a succession of other victims of crime, whose names I know about and have seen, and have yet to be made public, the systematic use of base and unlawful methods.
And he goes on, but the truth is that we needed to hear that. You've just been listening to A Piece of Lisa. If you'd like to listen to the whole 2-hour show, please go to lisawexler.com, where all shows are archived. And do follow me on Twitter @Lisa Wexler. Thanks for listening.